There we go. All right, I'm going. I'll see you soon. All right.
Right. Adios.
Adios. As the child grows through life, the parents and society influence the child in subtle and sometimes not so subtle ways. And the child begins to grow. But having been influenced by their parents and society, the child begins to conform to the needs and demands of the external world. And therefore, the child seems to act by the beliefs and feelings of other people rather than the authentic feelings that the being feels inside. So the child is taught to feel according to someone else's needs, desires, demands. And therefore, the child conforms and starts to live a life which is less than authentic. And therefore, the inauthentic child has within them this authenticity that is waiting to come to the surface. And this, you could say, in part is the little seed that we inferred of it in other talks. The nagging issue inside that the child should be their real self. So often the spiritual work unfolds and one follows a path which they label as being authentic, spiritual. The tendency can be for those following a spiritual path to just wear another false mask on their face. To say, I am a spiritual being. I must conform and live by those expectations. But one with a thin veil of inauthenticity means that they look at life and embrace life as experience. And they see that things are just the experience to be lived and will brace the whole of any experience. They start to feel internally and listen to that inner voice, which is their real self, trying to break through to the surface. And then they start to pick more of life orientated towards growth rather than security. Security in the early parts of all development, although very important for the growth to come, is the holding on to what is necessary for the springboard, if you like, to the future evolution of that inner child coming out into the exterior world. Now, you cannot have a life of 100% growth without any security. And you would not live much of a life if you had 100% security, if you did not embrace some growth to come into your being. So growth and security of self would be very important for your spiritual evolution. So if at any time you felt insecure, you will start to become defensive and put barriers around you for the growth, to be put on hold for a while. So at times, those which may be more on the margins of society may have trouble with their own growth and evolution of their interior self. But that internal self will be pushing from the inside, wanting to be birthed into the outside world. As that inner self says, the exterior world is false. I have lived by a false desire. So you should honor these tendencies to wake up. Honor those little nagging thoughts and feelings inside of you to wake up. Now, this is to wake up to the authentic real self, not the false self. And again, this was inferred in an example given to a lady about a corporate gentleman taking a holiday from his cell. So the inner tendency that you all have is to shed the false layers. And as you become more aware of this inner truth, then there is a feeling of a new self coming through the stone exterior and birthed into the physical world. So there appears to be two people, sometimes more, the real self and all the different personalities and roles that you may have played. And I will talk about that in the next part. So honor those feelings inside. Honor that core to be real. Do not put more layers on top, rather shed layers away. So do not gain the identity of being spiritual, non-spiritual, religious, famous, wealthy, independent, old, young. These are all trapped in time, must be lived in time, where the real you is beyond the time that the earth-based realm places on existence. In essence, being spiritual is not a name or an activity, but rather it is a description of your authenticity. Letting go of the plays of society, the letting go of all that's in the way that you must do or must be or must become. So to talk more about this after our healing segment, which we must go to now. So Brandon, may I have the names, please?
Cynthia, Lua, Melada, Bob and Doris, Roz, Pia, Kat, Craig, Amanda, Guy and Helen, Graham and Wendy Beck, Tony and Teresa, Lena, TJ and Tanner, Suzette, Rose Frazier, Howard, Teresa, Tracy, Eric, Stephen, Matthew, Marianne, Jody, Jill, Katie, Mitch, Stephanie, Helen, Randy, Lorna, and Hendricks. Thank you.
So at times in your life, you may feel like you have warring personalities within you. And this is because you have warring personalities within you. You see, you have followed desires, feelings, emotions, and not associated with your true, authentic self, means that they all have a desire for the way the person should live their life. So your emotions may say you should conform one way. The false being of self in a society will pick another future way of living. And they all paint a very different person that they should conform to be. And then they associate the way that they should live in the world also as being different. And they all have a demand on the world and say the world should be this way or that way. So, of course, this is great turmoil as all these apparent different personalities struggle to be front and center of the living being. But in time, if you honor the true self of being and start to calm the mind from its raging thoughts of conformity, then that inner intuition starts to speak more to you. And you begin to follow the voice of that inner intuition. And in time, that inner intuition starts to become the one thing you can trust the most. This is the authentic self that talks. And is beyond all the false selves which are between it and the physical world. So when you find this self, you trust it more, you become more authentic, and you live more truly. There is an openness to your being. You hold on to less private issues. You express yourself more into the world with an openness, knowing that you cannot be damaged in the authentic self. It's only the false self that is worried about damage. And then you come to this point of authenticity, where you say the real you that is calling on the inside does not need the external world does not need the safety and comfort of the external world. Rather, its safety and its comfort are within itself. You are secure in the truth of you rather than in the opinions of other people. You are safe within the truth of your heart rather than a changeable world, which sometimes is in your favor and is sometimes against you. And what does this authentic self ask of you? I'm sure you can see it does not ask anything other than to be itself. And one living there goes through life with more ease, sees that the external world is no more than an experience to be had. And the old challenges and personalities which were bubbling so fervently are not avoided, but are seen as no more than the human life being lived. So this rebirth of you is in fact no more than a shedding away to reveal your truth. Now, as you find this truth of you, it also is a true expression of, well, the life currently, the life previously, and maybe also evolution for the life that is to come in the next human existence. As preparations may be being made so that future lives can live in a certain. But they all are seen no more than the way the world must be, but not the way I am. Now you would say to myself, this is a being that has awakened, but it is not. It is a being that is coming more realized about living underneath the false existence. And now, the soul being apparent in the life can be fully expressed into the world. And the second play of existence, the soul's journey becomes more visible to both the human world and also to itself. So this authentic self then can watch the world, be not damaged by it, and then chooses how it should be rather than what it should do. Now, although all of this may seem a little complex or a little deep, you all know what I am talking about. As deep within you is the authentic truth that you know is lying there waiting to come out into the world. And the authentic you does not look for different skills because they are only useful to the physical being, but looks for a true expression. Do you not want to be the true you that is calling you? Do you not know of this true you that is calling you? Can you not feel this true you that is calling you? I assure you that you do know. My words are not unknown to you. My words are calling that depth to the surface and saying to you to be that whole, loving, complete truth. So do not ignore these inner tendencies to awaken, to express, and do not put another false you on the surface, because it'll only have to be cleansed away at some stage. Now, this authentic you, some people will say, that is my God. That is my spirit. That is my deity. That is my inner guru. And although there is a seed of truth in there, it is no more at this stage of the request to let go of the playful false self. So if you look within you, and at times someone will ask you a question, you should answer it from that inner self. If you answer any question from a false self, you'll be playing the game of life. So the false self lives by its egoic needs and desires. But the real self lives by how much expression of truth or love or being it can bring into the world. So the real self is trying to push into life, and the false self is trying to defend itself from the reality that is within or beyond it. Your work appears to be getting rid of the false selves. But let's look at it slightly different. Live with love or peace or joy, if you want those words. Live by those first. Rather than living by the false self first. Live by spirit first. There is no need to battle towards spirit. Live with love in your heart, not with the desires of parents or society. Now, there are times when there are people which come for help or advice. And of course, the real question is, who is it that is asking for advice? And often you could see, I hope, from this talk, that it is the false self that is asking for advice. The real self is still there beyond the false self. So advice must be given according to where that person is. Often, be the authentic self is insufficient advice. They are not ready to hear the words. At times, their reflection of peace and love is all that is required. And you would know this yourself as your authentic self when it connects to another. There is less desire to do anything. Rather, you just dwell in the connection to another. And this is how you know your true love, rather than the two false selves dancing to find a common ground. Can you be at peace with nothing to do when you are with your loved one? Do you demand your loved one becomes something or behaves a certain way? Or can you just be with their true self? So the difference between a sage and a fool is no more than the sage knows and the fool does not know. Both in essence are the same. One is living in the false existence and one is living in the true existence. But they live through the life of the physical world. One beyond it, one trapped in it. Which would you rather be? So the words or the talk today is to honor the inner tendencies to awaken, to be authentic, and to not put more falseness on top of that simplicity of self. If you look around your world, you may see other people or you may see affluence, or poverty. You may say many riches and comforts. Now, if we were to remove all those things, your riches and your comforts, is there turmoil? Or is there release? Are you dependent upon them? In which case, that is the life of the false self. Or can you be released from the bonds of holding so much? That, then, is where the authentic self is. So again, do not ignore the tendencies, the inner tendencies to wake up. Be the real you. Those remembering the experiment and words to come that the medium does not know about. It is this week, towards the end of this week, that the light bulb will go off in his head and an idea would spring forward. You will see. God bless you all. Until next week. And then we will dive deeper into this principles of being your true self. Let peace be within your heart first, and agitation second. God bless you.